Hello folks, welcome back to my channel. I am Faisal Khatri. In this tutorial video, I will provide you a practical demonstration on how to test APIs manually. This comes handy in many cases to perform a round of sanity and regression tests to verify that the APIs are working as expected. What will you learn from this video? You will learn how to test APIs manually using Postman, checking the Swagger for API documentation, importing a collection into Postman, and the practical hands-on API testing, where we will be verifying and validating the get, post, put, patch, and delete API requests and responses. Before we move into testing the APIs manually, let's first discuss about the application under test. I will be using this RESTful e-commerce APIs, which is a free to use e-commerce web APIs for practicing API testing. And it has multiple APIs that can be used considering the get, post, put, patch, and delete APIs. Also, there is one authorization API and an image upload API also available in this application. So, if you see the README, you will find all the installation steps. If you want to install it using the Node.js, you can follow these steps here. But I will be using Docker to install this application. So the installation steps are pretty simple, like you need to clone the repository and then move to that respective folder and create a .env file with this content that is displayed here. Once you have that env file created, next what we will do is we will run the Docker application and run the Docker compose command. So I have already cloned the repository. I already have the env file available in my project root folder. Here is that file .env, and these are the content that are available in the root folder. And I'll run the Docker compose command. My Docker application is already running. Let me run the Docker compose command. Docker compose -f. -f refers to the file name. I want to run this Docker compose file. Docker -compose e-commerce .yaml and up -d. So this will start the Docker compose in detached mode. And you can see, as previously I've already ran this command, it did not pull the image, but it started the application upfront because the images were already available in my local. And if you just go to the Docker desktop and check out, you can see the image for RESTful e-commerce application available, and the containers are now up and running. So once the application is started, we can navigate to this URL, http localhost 3004. Let's go to the navigate to this URL. So the APIs are exposed at this URL, but the Swagger is exposed at 3004 localhost colon 3004 slash API hyphen docs. So let me update it. And here you go. Yeah, we have the application up and running, and we have multiple APIs: post, get, put, patch, delete, and we have an authorization API, health check API, and a image upload API available. So this is the Swagger documentation. You can also verify that there is an authorization option here which asks for bearer token. I will come back to this authorization later once we start with the using the authorization token for updating and deleting the order records. So let's first start with the post API, that is add order. You can see there is no authorization required here. The APIs that require authorization that have an icon of a lock over here, these four APIs require authorization. So probably we will have to hit the authorization API and then update the token by clicking on this authorization button. But since post at order does not require any authorization, so we can generally check out the documentation and perform the testing. So Swagger can also be used for performing a round of manual testing on the APIs. And we can do that by just clicking on this try it out button. And here we have a sample body already available, which can be used to supply the data in the request, and then accordingly we can check if the API is working or not. So let me pass some valid data with user ID 1, product ID maybe 6, product name Samsung Galaxy S25, product amount 9,000, quantity 1, tax amount 500. The total amount should be now 9,500. We can also provide the values in the decimal as this amount field accepts the decimal, and then click on execute. Once you click on execute, you will see the response coming in, and this can be verified with the documentation. Here down we can see a section for responses. It shows that the code 201. So once you hit the request, the response should return a 201. If it is valid order and there are no errors in it, it should return 201 status code with the following response body. It should have one field as message that should read orders added successfully with the order array. So whatever orders that you supply in the request, that should be generated in the system, and you will have an array of orders returned in the response. Similarly, when you see the response, you see something similar kind of that is written in the documentation. Like we have an ID field that is an extra field here, which is generated to keep a check on the number of orders that are generated by the system. It is an auto incremental field which will automatically increment as and when the orders are entered into the system. So we have an order ID, we have a user ID, product name. So particularly whatever fields we supplied in the request, those fields appear in the response, and we can cross verify it, like a user ID 1, product ID 6, user ID 1, product ID 6, product name was Samsung Galaxy S25, product name was in the response appears to be the same as supplied in the request. Similarly, the product amount, quantity, text amount, and total amount. So all of the fields that we supplied in the request, the same, they appear in the response correctly. So that means the data integrity is working fine. This is a kind of a positive scenario that we tested. Now, if I remove, for example, this user ID field and try to execute, then it says each order must have user ID, product name, and a different fields that are all the mandatory fields that are required to create an order in the system. And we can verify this number, this particular message as well. The status code says to be in the response section. It says the status code should be 400, and then this message should be displayed. And the same message is displayed here. Similarly, we can also verify like what happens if we do not supply an array of orders, we just supply one object, right? And click on execute. So it again says it's a bad request, and the same documentation has a message which states that request payload must be an array of orders. The same message appears here. That means the negative and positive scenarios that we tested as per the documentation are working fine. Now there is one more scenario that we can test. That is maybe by adding multiple orders in one go. Let's add two more orders into the system now and change the details. iPhone 16, 10,000. To text amount is 600. So the total comes to 10,600. Again, let's change the user ID to 7, product ID to 9. Here we did not change the product ID, so I'm changing it to 8 in the first object, and in the second object I'll update the product ID to 2, and let's set it to iPhone, sorry, Apple smartwatch. Let's put the price as 3,450 as the text amount. Let's play with the quantity also. Let's update the quantity as 2. So 3 to the 6,000, and text amount is 450. So 6,000 is the total amount for 2 pieces. So the quantity is 2, 3,000 is one product amount. So it appears to 6,000 now. So the total comes to 6,450. And let's execute this. So there should be 2 more orders added to the system. It says there is an order error here in the JSON. So we can just verify the JSON once. Okay, there's one extra comma at the end. Let's correct it and resend this. And now we can see there are 3 orders appearing in the response. Order ID 1, which we created first, and then the 2 orders which we just created now. So this is how we can test the post APIs. Let's move to the next, that is the get all orders API. This will fetch all of the orders that are available in the system. It has just two details mentioned about the responses. One is response code 200 with orders fetched successfully once you retrieve all of the orders that are available in the system. And if there are no orders, then you should get a 404 with no order found message. So let's try it out and click on execute. There are no parameters required. So ideally, all of the orders that are available in the system should be fetched successfully, right? So this means this particular API is working as expected. We'll come back to this API later when if you want to do some negative testing, we'll have to delete all of the orders that are available in the system to check that there are the message no order found displays correctly. Let's jump on to the next, that is the get order API, which has three different query parameters. You can see the query being mentioned here, which refers to the query params. So the first one is the order ID, the second is the user ID, and third is the product ID. So let's put order ID as 3 and click on execute. So we should get only one order available in the response, that is order ID 3, because we specifically asked to get fetch the order with order ID 3. We can try multiple permutation and combination based on these fields. Like you can combine all of the three fields to check if the filtered order is appearing in the response or not. Like for example, in the order ID 3, we have the user ID 7. So let's put the user ID 7 and product ID 2. So let's put the product ID 2 and click on execute. So again, we should get the order ID 3 only. And then what if we change this product ID to 4? So I expect that there should be no order found because the combination of this order details is not available in the system. So that's the reason we get a no order found. And you can just verify this message that from the documentation, it says the same message should be displayed, no order found with the given parameters. So this is how we can perform verification for the get and the post APIs. Now, next, there is one API. There are three different APIs which are related to update and delete. Since update and delete, like modification and delete part, are an important from a user's point of view. Hence, we have this authorization available for this. So if you try to update an order, let's take an example of this order. Let's take this object directly as this put API requires the order object, all of the details, right? So let's click on try out and supply the same object. We don't need the ID to be supplied here. The ID of the order should be supplied as a path parameter. You can read this as path. So this is a path parameter. Whatever order path parameter that you provide for the order ID, the same order will be updated in the system. So let's change it to SE, product name. And since we are using this put API, even if you want to update a single field, you will have to supply whole of the order object in it. You cannot supply a single field to update the order because that is not how put works, right? Let's click on execute to check if that update appears correctly. Oh, we are getting a message. Token is missing. That means the authorization is perfectly working fine. We'll have to update the authorization token and then we will try updating the order. So let's first hit the authorization API to get the token. But here it says we need the username and the password. So for this, let's go back to the documentation. And in the GitHub repository, you will see one wiki page. In this wiki page, on the right hand side, just check out for the create or token link. It will take you to the create token documentation, and here you will find the username and the password values displayed. The username is admin and the password is secret pass 123. So before we enter a correct password, let's check out the documentation, what it says for the negative things. What if I do not supply the username and password? What if I supply an invalid password or an invalid username? All these combinations can be tested here as well to verify if the API is working as expected or not. So let's supply the username and keep the password as blank and click on execute. So it says username and password is required. Similarly, we can keep both of the fields blank and click on execute. Again, it says the same message with 400 status code. Let's supply some invalid values like just secret. That's not a correct password. And it says authentication failed. invalid username or password. And now let's apply the correct password here, secret pass 123, and let's see what happens. Okay, so we have the authentication successful and we get this authorization token as well. So let's copy this by clicking on this button here and go to the authorize, paste the whole value here, but we do not require to paste all of the values and click on authorize because it will give you an error. I'm just pasting it because I'll just keep whatever value is required and remove the rest. So I'll remove the brackets and the extra colons as well as the double inverted commas, the authentication fields and everything. And I'll just keep the token that starts from EY till the last R0 and click on authorize. So as soon as you see the logout button here, it means that bearer token was accepted and you have the authorization available now. Now we can go to the put API, click on execute, and we can see the response coming successfully with 200 status code, and we see a message order updated successfully. The product name has been changed to Apple Smart SE. But this is the response of the put request. If I want to confirm that the order has correctly been updated, let's hit the get API, get order API with the order ID 3 and see what happens. So we expect that the product name Apple Watch SE, what is being displayed, this is correctly coming here. That means the update order API worked successfully. Similarly, we can try multiple permutation and combination of the put API. And what happens if we supply invalid token? And what happens if we do not supply? So we already tested that if we do not supply the token, it says that token is missing. Similarly, we can test the other invalid scenarios of invalid token and so on. Now, the next API that I can talk about is the patch API. It's just the same as put API, but here the only difference between put and patch is that in put, you will have to supply the whole request body, even if you want to update a single field here. But in case of patch, that is not is required. We just need to provide the respective field that we need to update. So for example, if I want to change the product amount, so if I change the product amount, everything will from the numbers will change. So I'll have to update the tax amount and total amount as well. So let me copy these four fields and then paste it in the patch object. But I do not want to update the quantity, so I'll remove the quantity field. And I'll change the product amount to maybe 4,500. Then tax to 500. So the total comes at, the quantity is already 2. So let me take the quantity field as well. But we do not need to update the quantity. So let it be as it is. The quantity is already 2. So let's multiply the values of the value for the product amount by 2. So it comes to 9,000. 4,500 into 2 is 9,000 plus 500 comes to 10,000. And let's put it in decimals. And click on execute. So now we can see the values for the product amount, tax amount, and total amount have already been changed. One thing you will note here is we do not supply the authorization token in this API manually, but we already have provided it using this authorize button. So once it is been done, it will apply for all the APIs that are available on the Swagger page. That is how Swagger works. So basically, the order values were updated successfully using the patch request. And now if I want to check a kind of negative scenario, so let's enter order number as 13, which is not available in the system. It's an invalid order ID, and click on execute. So we should see something different now. Yes, we do see that the value, and we can verify it from the documentation. It will show 404 no order found with the given order ID, and the same message appears here. Now let's delete one order. We already have 3 orders. let's delete the second order and click on execute. So it says 204, and in the description we can find that no content is written in the response. So ideally this order got deleted successfully. Now just to confirm, let's go back to the get order and put the order ID as 2 and click on execute. So it says no order found with the given parameters. That means the order was successfully deleted from the system. To reconfirm, let's hit the get all orders API. So we get all of the orders that are available in the system, and we should not get the order ID 2, the details with the order ID 2, because it was deleted. So we see the order ID 1 and order ID 3 coming successfully, but we do not find the order ID 2, which means the delete successfully worked. Now let's hit the delete all API as well, just to confirm that it works fine. And it also says 204. Now let's hit the get all orders API, just to confirm that the delete works fine. And we say no order found. So we tested the next scenario for the get all orders, which says 404 no order found. Let's quickly check this get order. Previously, order ID 3 we used to retrieve the data, but now it should not retrieve any data, and we should get a message like no order found with the given parameters. So this is how we can use the Swagger to perform a round of manual testing around the different APIs that are available here. Similarly, there is one more API for image upload, and I will leave it to you to perform a round of testing around this API, what all combination and permutations you will check for verifying if this post image upload API works fine. There is a request body. You can try it out. This is the response. These are the different parameters that needs to be verified. For more information regarding the documentation, you can anytime check the GitHub repository wiki page. It gives the step-by-step documentation for all of the APIs, like the get health check API, the post orders API, request payload details, expected response, and validations are also given here. You can check out step by step different APIs and perform a round of manual testing to just verify and practice how to test the APIs manually. Let's now move to Postman and verify how we can test these APIs using the Postman application. But most important thing here is we need a collection to be imported in Postman, the API collection, and then only we can start with the testing. The collection is important because we can collectively import all of the APIs all at once using the collection itself. There is another option that we can use to like update single API into Postman using curl command, but that will be a very tedious task. So it's better to have a collection directly imported that will get all of the APIs, required APIs for testing in collection as a collection in Postman. So if you check the documentation here, I have already provided a section for importing the API collection into Postman. It says that we need to start the service to generate the Swagger JSON file, and we need to hit this URL. Or maybe there another option is we can hit the get/swagger.json API, and it will generate a Swagger file, swagger-output.json file in the Swagger files folder. And then we need to import the swagger-output.json file in the Postman as a collection. So let's quickly do that. I have this. Let me start the application first using Docker. So the application is now started. Let's quickly check by running localhost 3004 API docs, and we can see the Swagger coming up correctly. So let's go to the documentation once again, and it says that we need to visit this URL. So let me copy this URL and paste it in the browser and press enter key. Now you see it has printed some of the values, the JSON values. Let's go to the project. Now we can see the Swagger files folder generated here, and inside that we have the swagger-output.json file. Let's import this file in Postman to and start the testing. So to import this collection, we need to click on import button, and then uh, we can select a folder. We can select the file to import. In this RESTful e-commerce folder, I have a Swagger folder, Swagger files, and this is the file that I need to import. Click on open. Postman collection. I'll keep this default Postman collection. Click on import, and we can see all of the APIs that are available in this application: the add order, get all orders, get order, update order, partial update order, delete order, delete all orders, auth, health, and image upload. All of these APIs are successfully imported into the Postman, and we can start performing the required testing we need to perform. Before we start with the testing, there are certain prerequisites that we need to take care of. Like we need to set the variables first. Like if you go into side this add order API, you'll see there is a base URL here, which is already updated as a kind of a variable here. And if you go to the auth API, it requires the username and password and a token as well. So that particular thing also we need to set. So what we will do is we will start with the variables here. The variable for base URL is already set here. If it is not set, you can come to this main folder, RESTful e-commerce collection folder, and update the variable to base URL and localhost. The next one is we need to have the for the auth API, we need to have a bearer token. So we will require a bearer token here. This bearer token can be generated by using the auth API. This base URL variable is already updated in the, we have updated this in the collection. So let's first hit the health check to check out if that API works fine. And once you hover your mouse over the base URL variable, you should be able to see the values coming from the variable directly, like HTTP localhost 3004. Let's click on send, and we should get the response up and running. This is running. The uptime is 244 seconds. We can see today's date, 10th December, coming up successfully. The response code 200 OK is also coming fine. That means this API is perfectly working fine. And we can also confirm that the API application, RESTful e-commerce, is also up and running. Now let's move quickly to the add order API. Here also we can just hover over the base URL variable and check if the variable values are correctly set or not, and we can see the URL coming up correctly. Now we need to provide the values for this the body for the order, because that is an important part in this add order post request. So let's set the user ID to maybe 5, product ID to 7. Let's set the product name to Samsung refrigerator, and let's set the product amount to 7655.34. Quantity 1. Let's set the product amount to 1200.90, and the total amount should be, let's calculate the total amount here, 7655.34 plus 1200.90, 8856.24. So the total amount should be 8856.24. Once this is done, as I said, if you just check for the Swagger documentation again, this API just requires the body in the correct format. And once we hit that, we should get this response: order added successfully with the array of the orders. Just click on send, and we should be able to see this response coming up correctly. Message says orders added successfully, 201 response code as per the documentation. It's working fine. Also, we can see whatever value that we supplied in the order, the same value is retrieved in the order array with an additional of ID. This is automatically generated with an incremental number every time we add an order. So this order API, post order API is working fine. And I said, as per the documentation we already saw previously while checking the Swagger API, Swagger documentation and testing the API using Swagger, that it does not require any authorization. You can see there are no parameters required here. Also, it does not require any authorization. If this requires any authorization for the put, patch, delete API, you can see a log coming in here. That means it requires an authorization. For the post API, for adding an order, there is no log here, which means authorization is not required. So the post API is working fine. Now just let's check for some negative scenarios, like 400 response code request payload must be an array of orders, and each order must have a user ID and so on. So let me remove the product ID and again click a send. We can see a message coming up like each order must have user ID, product ID, and with a 400 bet request. Also, let's try to remove a field from this order array, order object. Let me remove the user ID and click on send. And you can see Postman already showing me the values like missing required property user ID. This is coming as per the specification provided by the collection itself. So it says that the user ID property is missing, and the same can be verified and confirmed in the response code. Message is shown in the response body, like each order must have user ID, product ID, and so on. So similarly, you can test for each and every field by removing single field while sending the request, and then verify that you have a correct message. The same message is displayed for all of the required fields. All of the fields, these are of a required mandatory. So we need to supply all of these fields in the request. Similarly, we can also check there should be some validation for the total amount as well. Like if you have a product amount quantity as one and there is a text amount as well. So since this is a demo application, I have not handled this kind of validation here, but in your real time products or applications, you should verify that whatever product amount or text amount you put in the API request, you should have a total amount as well. The total amount cannot be zero if you already have a order value. Similarly, if you have a product amount and total amount, then the text amount should either be zero. It should not be an invalid value like minus or something. Also, you can check for the negative field like the product amount by entering this value as a negative number, maybe for minus 7,000 something, or maybe 00, and enter the quantity as 5. That should also give an appropriate message in the response with the proper status code that these are some invalid entries and it should not get updated in the system. So these are some kind of permutation and combination that you can check with the host APIs. Also, you can also verify by changing the URL to some other invalid URL and then hitting it, and you should see a kind of like connection refused error. This is also a good catch here. Like this is showing that the connection refused, but maybe you can check it with your developer more. If you what happens if you send some invalid URL, if they have any documentation updated for that. This is a demo API and I have not handled all of this kind of validation. So maybe you are getting this connection refused error here. But if it's a real-time application, either you should show a proper message to the respective end user so that they can consume that error and accordingly throw a kind of a proper message that can interpret the user what actually went wrong. We have already sent an order here. Let's quickly hit the get all orders. Here also we can just verify the get base URL is displayed correctly. Click on send. You can see we have a 200 OK and 13 milliseconds were taken for sending and receiving the response, for the receiving the response ideally. And then we see the orders are fetched successfully. I see 2 orders generated here because I sent the 2 times same API. One by changing the product ID and then the product ID 5 and 7. So ideally this is also fine. 2 orders are there and order ID 1 and order ID 2. Let's retrieve the order by giving a respective. Let's remove all of this and just put the ID and let's retrieve the second order. And we can see the second order has a user ID 2, the order ID 2 with user ID 5, 9, and all of the values that we put are coming up correctly. Similarly, the same order, let's check by providing the product ID 9 and then retrieving the order. So this time I have selected the user ID, and you can see after question mark, this variable changes. So that it is now filtering the order based on the user ID, and it should retrieve the same order here. Okay, let me put it again. I think I made some mistake here. The product ID is not 9, not the user ID. So that was a correct response. There is no order with user ID 9 in the system, and that is the reason why we are getting this message. No order found with the given parameter. Let's put the product ID as 9 and then retrieve this again. So we should be getting this order again, details with the product ID 9. For the user ID, maybe we can put a correct user ID like 7, and 7 pertains to the order number, order ID 1. So it should retrieve. Okay, let me recheck for the order ID 1. So there is a user ID 5. Okay, let's retrieve for user ID 5 and see what happens. So we get two orders, as both of the orders have the same user ID 5. So we get two orders. Let me quickly add one more order with the user ID 8, product ID 10. Let's change it to Samsung Galaxy S25, and the amount to 7500, quantity 1000. So it should be 8500, and then click on send. So you can see the third order has been added successfully. There were already two orders in the system. I added the third order for the user ID 8, product ID 10, product name Samsung Galaxy S25, and the different values for the product amount, quantity, text amount, and total amount. Now let's retrieve the same order. For the order ID 3, we have the user ID 8 and product ID 10. So let's put the order ID 8. I expect that we should get the order for the user ID 3. And that is what we see in the response. 200, okay, 16 milliseconds, 430, 13 bytes is the response size. The request size is 257 bytes. We can keep a check on the data sent across and received in the response, because this is also a major issue. In case if you are receiving a huge response, then it might cause a delay in getting the response from the server or hitting the request with the server. So make sure you keep an eye on all of these three values. This can be used for performance testing to verify how much seconds, how much time does it take to retrieve a response. Ideally it should be within a second, but in case of complex responses, we can say like it should be around under 2 or 3 seconds, but it should not go beyond that. If it goes beyond 1 second or 2 seconds, it should be highlighted with the respective team members in the developers to and ask them to highlight why it's taking so long, and we need to optimize that query so that we receive the response in a fraction of seconds, maybe in milliseconds. This is because if this API is integrated with the front end and it takes a long to retrieve the records from the backend and show it to the end user, chances are the end user might move away from your website. You might receive a strong bounce rate from on your website because you're not getting the respective response in the stipulated amount of time, like not in a milliseconds. It goes beyond seconds and sometimes in minutes. So the performance of the website will be a hit. So it's better to have this in milliseconds, and look out for the optimization in case if it goes beyond 1 second or 2 seconds. Similarly, while updating the order, now here we would require an authorization here, and you can see the bearer token is required, and the bearer token is currently empty. So what we will do, we will go to the auth API. This does not require any authorization, and we will supply the value as admin and secret pass 123. These values you can find on the wiki page. If you are not aware what username and password you need to put, you can check out this page. Ideally, in your real-time project also, you can check with your developers, yeah, or the documentation wiki page to get the respective values for the secrets. And you can see the API will create a fresh token using following credentials. The credentials are username is admin and the password is secret pass 123. So I have put the same values here, and let me click on send, and we can see the token generated successfully. This is also a test case here, like we need to check that the tokens are getting successfully generated. We get a 201 created, it gets generated in 21 milliseconds, and the message is authentication successful. We see the same message here that is shown in the documentation. To verify, before we copy and move on to these next steps for the put, patch, and delete APIs, let's put some hands-on on this authorization API, as it is an important API from applications point of view. So let me remove the username, keep it blank, and press send. So here you can see the username and password is required for authentication. Let's check the auth API documentation, what it says. So it says like if the username and password are set blank, then you should give us 400 bad requests and this message username and password is required for authentication. Similarly, if I put the username and remove the password value, what happens? It shows the same response. That means this validation is working fine. What happens if I put a wrong password here, like only secret pass? I see a different message. It shows that 401 authentication failed, invalid username and password. Correct? In authentication failed, invalid username or password. The 401 unauthorized is displayed and it comes in for 14 milliseconds. Now, what happens if I change the endpoint to authorization? I see a kind of a cannot post authorization, as this is not found. The URL is not found. You can check with the developer also in this case, like what happens if the endpoint that is not available, what kind of message is there, any wrapper message that you have been created as per the framework to show a respective message like URL, you hit a wrong URL or resource or something kind of, or is it like required to show a specific message here in case the user hits the wrong URL? Because this happens in integration testing. If your API is being consumed by any other third party API, then in that case they should show a respective message based on the requirements that receive from the client. If there is no such requirement, then maybe it depends upon the implementation show the response in such scenarios. So let me change it back to auth and put the correct. One more thing, what happens if I remove the field directly? I do not pass the password, the same message. So this is correct, and it shows a correct interpretation. The user can interpret this one message as well, like username and password. So maybe they can understand, oh, I have forgotten to update the password in the body, and they will be able to pass on the values and get the respective response with the token. Now let's pass on the correct values, and I see the response coming with the token. So let me copy this, and then let's go to the variable. So this is the collection. I am just clicking on this collection, and here there is a variables tab. Let me put the value token here and then save it. So this value is saved here. Now let's go to the, okay, now there is one mistake that I have made. The token says it requires a variable called bearer token, but now here I have supplied it as token. So let me change it to bearer token. Okay, and save it. Let's go to the put API now again, and you can see the token coming up correctly here. So this adding the variables to the values to the variables is quite helpful, as it helps in getting the same values multiple times. So you need not repeat the same values, hard coded values again and again in different APIs. Once you add the variable, you can use the variable throughout the collection. And here for the update API, let me get this order 3 and let's update this order. What happens if I post or put hit this put API directly? So it says we need to provide the order ID. So we will provide the order ID as 3 and directly click on send. So you can see a minor mistake has updated or corrupted your order. So you need to be very much careful. You can see the user ID string, the product amount, value, and so on are getting updated here. Let's go to the get API and get the order with order ID 3 And you can see there are some invalid values getting updated here. The user ID is updated as string, string, string. So while updating or using the patch request or using the put request to update anything, any of the field values, make sure that you provide the correct values as required and provided in the documentation, and then only you send the request rather than directly blindly sending the request just to verify what how it works. Or unless and until you are very much familiar with the application, do not use this put API blindly. So again, let me correct this. Let me change it to user ID 6, product ID 9. Let's change it to Samsung smartwatch. Change the value to 4000. Oh, sorry, 4000. Quantity to 2. Tax amount to 500. So this should be 4000 into 2, 8000 plus 500, 8500. And I can provide the value in decimals as well. Click on send. And now you can see the order has been updated successfully. To just verify, it shows 200 OK and the values are correctly updated as we get in the response. Just to confirm that the order has been correctly updated in the system, let me again get the order by hitting the get order API, and we can see the values are coming up correctly. One more thing, what happens if I try to update the order by posting some invalid values, like leaving the user ID blank? See, let's check the documentation, what it says about invalid values update. Fail to, sorry, each order must have user ID, product ID. So we are getting the correct message here. Let me update it to 6 again and remove the total amount and then send. See, it failed here. Maybe you can check it with the developer. I have not handled any such values here. I can just update it to 00 and send again. And it says like each order must have a user ID, product ID, total amount. Because I have put the total amount as 0, it's not taking that amount because I have a product amount and tax amount and total quantity. So it is expecting some values in the total amount as well. It cannot be 0. Let me change it back to 8500 and then send again. And you can see the orders getting updated correctly here. Let us check another message where I do not provide the token. So let me go to the bearer token and make it blank. Save it and again try to update the order. See, it shows the same message. Forbidden token is missing. The last test case, let me first correct this. Sorry, need to go to this auth token API. And in the variable, I need to update. And then let me send it again. Okay, so the order has been updated successfully. Now, what if I try to update order with an invalid ID? Then now the order ID 6 does not exist in the system. I'm trying to update this order. I should get a respective message. So I am expecting this message. No order found with the given ID. And the response status code is 404. 404 not found. It took 12 milliseconds. And then the order got, no order was found for the given order ID. Similarly, we can check the partial order as well. Here also, the authorization requires a bearer token. And since we have already updated that bearer token variable, we can see that the variable, it's already picking those values from the variable, and we are not required to update the token again. But we need to provide the body, the field which we want to update for the respective order. So let's update order 3 again. And in here, what we will do is we'll update the product amount and quantity. Or maybe we can update all of these 4 fields. Let's go to the patch order. Let's change the product amount to 5000, quantity to 3, tax to 700. So 5 3s are 15,000, 700 is the total amount now. And then click on send. And we can see the order ID 3, the response that is printed, that is very much helpful to verify that the order was updated successfully with the order ID 3. User ID, product ID remains the same as it was before, but and also the product name, but the product amount, quantity, and tax amount, all of these values, as well as the total amount, got updated as per the value supplied in the request. Just to confirm, let's retrieve the order ID 3 again. So previously, these are the values: 4,200, product quantity 2, tax amount 500, and 8,500 was the total amount. Now, let me hit this and we can see the updated values coming here correctly. Now, let's delete this order. Again, for this delete order, we require a bearer token, which is coming correctly from the authorization, the variable. And the delete API does not require any body to be sent. We just need to send the order ID. So let's delete order ID 3 and we can see 204, no content. That means the order was deleted successfully. Just to cross verify, let's hit the get API with order ID 3 and we should see like no order found with the given parameters. Also, we can hit get all orders to verify. We see only two orders here, order ID 1 and order ID 2. Similarly, what we can do is we can also clear this bearer token and it should give us a respective message like this particular forbidden token is missing, and again we can verify the authentication failed. What we can do is let me change the bearer token value. Let me remove some values from this token, and this token is not valid here because there was a longer value that was provided in the token. I have changed it. So let me run the delete all orders, because delete all order API also requires the bearer token, and you can see only half of the token value is coming up here. There is no body required here. You can see that delete all orders. It will directly delete all of the orders that is available in the system. Let me click on send and we can see the message failed to authenticate token. That is a 400 BET request, failed to authenticate token. Now let me change the token to the correct one. Let me copy this again. You have noticed that I'm not hitting the post auth API again and again for getting the token. I'm using the same token, copying and pasting it in the variable because that token is available for and valid for 1 hour. So it's better use the same token. Let's go to the delete API again, delete all order, and then click on send. So here again, you see 204, no content, which means all of the orders have been deleted. Let's go to get all orders API and click on send. You should see no order found with the 404. Similarly, we can, just to confirm that we deleted all of the orders, we can try to get the orders by the respective order ID 1, 2, 3, and so on. And for all of these values, we should see a message like no order found with the given parameters. Even if we remove all of the parameters as all of these are optional and click on send, again, we should be able to see no order found with the given parameters. So this is how you perform the testing with the Postman. Also, there is a script step available here that helps us to write a test in JavaScript using chai assertions. Make sure while you perform the API testing, you perform a different permutation or combinations of different tests, like that the get request retrieves the correct responses for the given request with each query or path param, and then verify that data requested is correctly retrieved in the response. Ideally, you can verify the data integrity of all of the APIs that you see, like we did in all of the requests and the responses with the by hitting each and every API manually one by one. We can also verify the negative scenarios such as sending blank data in the mandatory fields, incomplete body requests, invalid data in the post, put, and patch APIs. We can also verify the and validate the request body that we send in the post, put, and patch APIs correctly creates and updates the specific data in the system. And also we can verify the data type of fields and the respective value, like the string, numbers, etc. in the response are coming correctly. And the data should be as per the functional requirement specification, like we were going around in the Swagger documentation in the wiki page and then verifying and cross verifying the things, how the things are appearing correctly or not as per the documentation, and that API is behaving as per the expected requirement or not. And we also verified the test cases related to different status codes like 200, 201, 400, 404, 401, 403, and so on. Similarly, you can verify by shutting down the server and checking if the response we get is correctly displayed or not for 500, 503 if the service is down, and so on. We also verified that the response data and its format to ensure that the respective request accurately matches and contains the expected values as given in the requirement documentation. And we also verified the response time that we receive to ensure that the service is performing efficiently and meets the expected speed under various conditions. Like a best practice I mentioned earlier as well, the response should be retrieved within milliseconds. If we need to pay an attention if the response times exceeds 2 3 seconds, as this may indicate performance bottlenecks that needs to be addressed. And for some of the APIs, there were authorization and authentication also provided for the put, patch, delete APIs, and we perform those validations as well to ensure that only the legitimate users can access them and they have a proper permission for each action. After performing a round of isolated API tests, like testing each and every API explicitly one by one, like get testing it in an isolated fashion, just verifying the get API only, just verifying the put, patch, delete, post API only. We should perform a round of end-to-end testing to ensure that all the integrated APIs are working correctly. This helps in getting the respective application working. Like for example, we can verify if all of the APIs as a whole application works perfectly fine or not, and if there are any bottlenecks in the integration of different APIs, we can catch them and fix them before we reach post these particular APIs to production. An edge case for this would be like we hit the get API after creating a record to verify using the post API to verify that the orders were created successfully in the system. Similarly, after hitting the delete API, we hit the get API to verify that the orders were correctly deleted from the system. And there are multiple tools, like apart from Postman, there are other tools like Swagger we use for verifying the API validations. There is another API client like Insomnia, Bruno, Soap UI. If there is a Soap UI request, we can verify using Soap UI application. For the automation purpose, you can use multiple frameworks. Like there is a framework called REST Assured in Java, OKHTTP3 in Java. There is a super test library in Node.js, XCS library in Node.js. There is Playwright automation framework which supports web as well as API automation as well. And there is for the Python programming language, we have a request library available. Similarly, we have a Karate DSL available for domain specific language verification. So in my experience, like performing functional performance, security, and end-to-end testing provides a strong foundation for understanding the API's behavior. And we can ask as many as questions as necessary and continue testing until we are confident that the API is production ready. Asking questions and clarifications for the respective API is very helpful while performing a round of manual verification and validation, as it helps in uncover multiple issues and fix them. I hope you learned a lot from this video. Do like this video and share it with your friends and subscribe to my channel for more such videos. Thank you.